As I said, I think they did a good job making the writing for this film adapt to the big screen, but this scene is the exception of that. This one is pretty confusing if you ask me, and it's one of the coolest scenes visually, but it's one of the worst scenes for the story because it's just not clear how or why this is happening. I'm interested to read the screenplay for this part, which does not come out until July, but I think it would be interesting to see how Rowling meant for this to come across. As you just saw, I did not understand this scene when I first saw the movie, and in the comments you all agreed with me saying you had no idea what happened here. Well, now that the screenplay is out, we can finally read it and figure out what Rowling was trying to do here. So let's get right into it as I explain exactly what happened in this scene. Dumbledore turns the snowflake into a water droplet, and we watch as it flies into the window, and the window is vital to understand this scene. Going through the window was actually the droplet going into the reflection, and as it hit Credence's forehead, the screenplay says, "The sound of the street melts away, becoming distant." When the droplet hit Credence, it brought himself and Dumbledore into what the screenplay told us was called the Mirror World. I had actually called it the Mirror Dimension like in Doctor Strange, so I wasn't too far off. At this point in the scene, Credence has no idea that they're not in the normal world anymore, only Dumbledore does. And as the Phoenix swoops down, we see that it too is in the Mirror World. They have their little back and forth as Dumbledore realizes that Credence was the one sending his brother Aberforth messages on the mirror in the Hog's head.
You're the one sending messages in the mirror.
As Credence begins to emit his dark energy, the screenplay says, "The world around them seems to continue on as normal," meaning no one in the real world can see or sense their presence. The two then begin to duel, and remember, Credence does not know that he's in the mirror world. He still thinks he's in the real world, which means all of this damage that he does, he did not care who or what got hurt, which is kind of wild. The two then enter the tram during their duel, and after splitting it in half and ending up back on the street, the screenplay says, "Silence." The street eerily quiet now, and for the first time, Credence starts to register how the world around him feels different. So at this point, Credence now realizes that they're not in the real world anymore, and he doesn't really know what to make of it. As he takes this in, Dumbledore was able to sneak up behind him and put a wand to his neck. As he does, Dumbledore takes out his Deluminator, the thing that we saw him have in his first ever appearance and the first ever Harry Potter book, which is a pretty cool detail. The Deluminator then sucks the street away but keeps the same ground, and we realize that the Deluminator was what gave Albus the power to send them into the mirror world. The street being sucked away also tells us that Dumbledore could control what surrounded them, and he had purposefully made the street the background so that Credence wouldn't know he wasn't in the real world anymore. And this is illustrated perfectly by Dumbledore's next line.
Things are not quite what they appear, Credence.
What we see surrounding them now is what the mirror world actually looks like, and as the scene plays out, we find out why. They are actually in the reflection of the puddle on the street, which is why the ground stayed the same when everything else changed. And this also explains why it's so dark and murky. It's literally a puddle. When looking at the reflections in the water in the mirror world, we see the reflection of the real world, which the screenplay explains by saying this. We're left in this world that's gone completely black, but in the melted puddles all over the ground, you can see daylight and traffic in the real Berlin going on just as it was. They of course continue their fight here, and when Dumbledore wins, he gently places Credence on the ground. The Phoenix then swoops in and goes over Credence, which makes Albus realize for the first time that Credence really is a Dumbledore. Albus apologizes to his nephew.
I'm sorry for your pain. We didn't know, I promise.
And when Dumbledore takes his Deluminator out again, he uses the object's power to take them through the puddle that depicted the real world, and as they enter the real world, you can see the dark, murky puddle they now sit in, which depicts the mirror world that they were just in. The screenplay explains this saying this: he and Credence are now in the street, the world of their duel reflected beneath them in pools of water collected by the melted snow. A lot of people also thought that the scene with Albus and Grindelwald at the end was the same magic that happened here, but now that we have the screenplay, we find out that that's actually incorrect. For the first scene, time in the real world moved on normally while they were in the mirror world. Meanwhile, in the later scene, time actually stopped, which is evidenced by the screenplay saying this: the world goes slowly still as if the rotation of the earth itself were slowing, and later it said, the frozen world around them. Unlike the first scene, which was magic powered by the Deluminator, this later scene was magic powered by the Blood Trough. When the chain of the Blood Trough broke, it stopped time and sent the two of them here. Then the magic that froze time wore off when the Blood Trough smashed, showing that that was the thing that had them there. So now that we have an explanation of how and why these things happened, let me know in the comments below what you think. Is this scene better now that we know the hows and whys? For me personally, I think it actually makes me like the scene more. I'll be making another video that dives into the screenplay more, so look out for that. But for now, that's all I have for you today. Thanks guys.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Instagram to see more of my personal life, like my cute dog Loki, and some behind the scenes movie flame stuff. I also do similar content on TikTok and Twitter that I do here on this channel, so if you like what I do here, check them out. All the handles are right below me, and links are in the description. Over here are my wonderful patrons. If you want to be featured on the next video, plus get a few other perks, become a patron today. As always, if you liked the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great movie flame videos on the way.